4 years. 4 years we have waited, and it's finally here. The first footage from Amazon Prime's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, in the form of a 1-minute teaser trailer shown at the Super Bowl. So let's break this down scene by scene. So honestly guys, I can't remember a time when a trailer has built up this much hype. For me personally anyways. Maybe Spider-Man just last year, but nothing else comes to mind. I know the fan base has been very mixed when it comes to this show, especially this week, but honestly I thought this trailer was fantastic. Absolutely stunning. But yeah, let's take a look at it. In case you don't know, Amazon's show is set during the Second Age of Middle-earth, and the trailer reminds us this constantly, with phrases such as, "A new legend begins, before the king, before the fellowship, before the ring." I'm sure Amazon will try to make it more clear to casual fans, but us hardcore Tolkien nuts, we know all about the Second Age. And technically the last statement before the ring is only partially true, as the One Ring, the Ring of Power, and of course all the other rings given to the races of Middle-earth will be forged during this series. Think about it like this. This is basically the Fellowship of the Ring prologue and everything else cut out. And honestly, there's a lot that was cut out of Peter Jackson's movies, especially when it comes to the Second Age and the prologue. And the opening scene of this teaser trailer is perhaps the biggest, the island realm of Numenor. And to oversimplify it, it's basically where Aragorn's ancestors come from. It is located west of Middle-earth, but Numenor doesn't exist during the time of the Fellowship, in the Third Age, as it was sunk during the Cataclysm event known as the Downfall of Numenor, which is something we have to see on this show. And I don't think there's any doubt that that will happen, as it's a huge turning point in not only Sauron's character, but also the fate of the entire world. It literally changes the landscape of the world. And personally, I think it looks absolutely beautiful. And that goes for this entire trailer, especially the wide landscape shot of the two nomadic hunters, whose pictures were released earlier this week. And when I first saw them, I wasn't too fond of their design. It definitely kind of feels out of place to me, but it's kind of growing on me at the same time. And even though this series will have very familiar elements of Middle-earth from the Peter Jackson movies, it's also going to showcase some of the continent that we haven't seen. But putting that aside, I'm just happy Amazon are focusing on real life locations, just like Peter Jackson did. It makes Middle-earth feel real and really showcases the scale of the continent. And remember, they filmed season 1 down in New Zealand just like Peter Jackson, so of course it's always going to feel a bit similar. And I've said this from the beginning, this Amazon show is a prequel to his movies. I don't think that has been confirmed or denied yet, but that's always been my speculation. And we will see a lot of familiar elements from his trilogy, including perhaps the most familiar element from any Lord of the Rings movie, and that's the presence of Markella Kavanagh's character, who says, "Haven't you ever wondered what else is out there? There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering. I can feel it." And Markella Kavanagh's character is a harfoot, one of the groups of nomadic ancestors to hobbits. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Amazon used the hobbits as their thumbnail and ended the trailer as well with them. Like it or not guys, hobbits are here to stay, and for at least season 1, they will have a substantial role. And I'm fine with that. And honestly, the tone of this character's voice, her smile, and the light in her eyes, it could have been the most heartwarming moment in this trailer. This little harfoot definitely seems to want more in life than what's currently set out for her. She wants to go to the world outside of her borders, of whatever land they live in, because during the Second Age, the Shire has not been founded yet. And I imagine, just like Samwise Gamgee, this hobbit probably wants to see elves. Just like Frodo, she probably wants to go on adventures. And in an age filled with legendary Numenorians, powerful elven lords, and mighty dwarven kings, I think it's good that the ordinary folk are here as well. And even though many argue hobbits don't belong in the Second Age, I think it's right for them to be here. And hobbits don't really play an important role in history until the Third Age. But hobbits have to have came from somewhere. They can't have just sprung up from holes in the ground. I think they should be kept out of the main ring-making story and all the politics. I think they should have their own story. And that brings me to this point, and we have to jump to the very end of the trailer. I imagine this is Markella Kavanagh's hobbit's hand, and she's holding onto the infamous Meteor Man's hand. Someone supposedly arrives on a meteor, as seen in the trailer, and confirmed by Fellowship of Fans. It looks like it's this old chap, this so-called Meteor Man. And my first thoughts were this has to be Sauron in disguise. But because there's been a poster of this character, and the trailer ends with them, my money's on Sauron, who is using this old man form to mingle with the hobbits, to learn about them. And he's doing that for all the races, I believe. He wants to learn about their cultures, their leaders, as this is part of his grand plan to create the Rings of Power. And I feel he's going to appear in forms that feel familiar to the races that he's interacting with. So with the hobbits, it's some old hermit living in the woods, to the elves of Eregion, a lordly messenger of the Valar, Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. But that is not confirmed, that is just my theory. So yeah, now on to the Lady Galadriel, or as this show portrays her, the Amazonian warrior Galadriel in her youth. And remember guys, even though this Galadriel will turn into the one we knew from Lord of the Rings, she's not the same character just yet. She's not as wise, and she's not burdened with Nenya, the Ring of Power. This Galadriel is much younger, and she's played by Morif Clark, who from all these promotions kind of feels like the main character. It's definitely an ensemble cast, but Galadriel is definitely up there, and I think her screen time will be huge. And we're going to dive deep into her backstory, and supposedly Galadriel's on a mission to wipe out evil in this world, especially the evil that killed her kin. She wants to avenge her brothers, Ignor, Angrod, and Finrod Felagant. But Fellowship of Fans have confirmed tonight this character here is Finrod, and this battle takes place during the First Age. So this has to be part of the prologue, or perhaps some sort of flashback. And this is incredibly relevant to Galadriel's backstory of hunting evil and avenging her brothers and all the innocents that have been killed by the spawn of Morgoth. But also, it's extremely important to Sauron, as Sauron is basically the reason why Finrod was killed. And I think this First Age battle will be the first shot of Sauron, and this is where he captures Finrod, who is then killed by Sauron's werewolves. Damn, this is getting deep into the history and lore of Middle-earth. We knew the First Age and earlier would be shown, as the first image they dropped was that Two Trees teaser poster, or screen cap from the series, or whatever. And that caused everyone to freak out, because that is not the Second Age. It's not even the First Age, it's before that. So this either is a prologue, or a Galadriel recap flashback kind of scene. And we can see Galadriel on one of her hunts to destroy the spawn of Morgoth. And I wonder if she's following whispers of Sauron. There's talk that he's still around, because after the defeat of Morgoth, he escapes. His master is defeated and imprisoned, but Sauron flees and remains hidden somewhere in Middle-earth. And perhaps Galadriel is going looking for him. But we can see Galadriel on an expedition. I'm assuming it's either the Northern Waste, and she's looking for traces of evil, maybe Sauron himself. Or this could potentially be the Hilcaraxi, which is the frozen land between Armon in the west and Middle-earth in the east. But Galadriel crossed this perilous land in the First Age alongside her brothers. Or it could be her in the Northern Waste hunting Sauron, or his spawn. This series is kind of turning into a Galadriel prequel, and we've got even more shots of her. We know she will be on a wreckage on the Sundering Seas, with a brand new character, the human Halbrand, who seems to be on the run from his past, whatever that means. It's possible he's Numenorian, trying to escape the island for what has happened to him, or maybe he's trying to get back into it, and he bumps into Galadriel on his way there or out. But it seems like he doesn't know she's an elf, as once the storm passes, he checks her ears, and that's probably the first time he realises who she is, or that she's an elf. And that's interesting, because this is a brand new character, we know nothing about him. But he did have his own poster, and he's holding a sword that is very Rohan-esque. And just like the Shire, Rohan doesn't exist right now, but it's possible Halbrand is an ancestor of Rohan. I always say prequels love hint hint nudge nudge moments. Do you remember the guys from Rohan? They had horses. This guy's got a horse sword. But yeah, moving on, another brand new character, Arondir, who is a Sylvan elf. And he shows off some of his fancy skills with a bow and other weapons. And he lives in the south of Middle-earth, an area that's been unexplored so far. And he's in love with a human character called Bronwyn, who is another brand new character made up by Amazon. But yeah, their love seems to be forbidden in their cultures. This is obviously an Aragorn, Arwen callback, but this time it's illegal. And I think that's there to help show us how different the cultures and customs of these races are. These Sylvan elves are very different than the elves of, let's say, the highborn Noldor of the West. And I find that very interesting, as the Lord of the Rings really only showed us one side to the elves. They were just seen as some elegant, higher race, whereas if you look into their history, it's very dark and dirty. I know The Hobbit tried to branch out more of the elven cultures with Mirkwood and Tauriel, but I tried to forget about that. But yeah, let's move on again. Here's the shot of Meteor Man. And I don't think the phrase before the ring is a mere coincidence. I've got a feeling this is Sauron. And guys, here he is, the High King of the Noldor himself, Gil-Galad, the top dog of his people. He is leader of the Noldor and the Sindar elves in Middle-earth, and he eventually leads his people into the War of the Last Alliance. And he's the bearer of 1 or 2 rings of power depending on what source you use. But Peter Jackson didn't care for him. He's in the Fellowship of the Ring prologue for about 2 seconds, and we know more scenes were filmed because there's quite a lot of stuff behind the scenes involving him and Elrond. But Gil-Galad is a big deal, and he, alongside King Elendil, are the ones who really put Sauron down, at the cost of both their lives. And unlike Peter Jackson, Amazon will use Gil-Galad, who looks very regal, very kingly. And you'll notice he looks to be looking above. He's seen something in the sky, likely the meteor passing over Middle-earth, because I think you'll get some sort of montage where the meteor flies through the sky and all these great kings and lords, they watch it and then speculate what it is. And then possibly Gil-Galad summons a council to discuss this matter. Some agree it's important, some don't give a damn. Yeah, we're almost finished now. Back to Galadriel though, who is the commander of the northern armies, whatever that means. She rides into battle, and this looks straight out of Narnia. That is definitely High King Peter charging on horseback. That's the vibe I got from that. I'm not sure if this is during the Second Age, during the present time, or as a flashback to the First Age. But I imagine there has to be some relevant battle in the present time in Season 1. Because right now that's what fantasy needs and expects. Personally, I don't think they're needed, unless they're actually relevant to the story. Sometimes these battles are just there to look good, to show off all the great spectacle. But if it's important to the story, I'm all for it. The next location is definitely stunning. I can't be certain where it is, but I'm guessing it's Lindon, ruled by Elven High King Gil-Galad. And I think this will be the same place Elrond and Galadriel embrace. It's got a very similar aesthetic in terms of forest and stone. And I think that is Gil-Galad in the middle of this council or whatever. And I think this is likely after Galadriel returns from Numenor and Gil-Galad has summoned all these important people to discuss the meteor in the sky. I think this will be a very similar kind of idea to the Council of Elrond. Not exactly sure who's going to be there, but I think Middle-earth will be divided on this. Some people will be very concerned, especially Galadriel, who seems to be obsessed with wiping out evil, whereas others, they couldn't give a shit. Yeah guys, we're almost done, but it's Dwarven time now. Moria, also known as Khazad-dûm, in its prime. This is Prince Durin IV, and the female dwarf is Disa or Disa, a dwarven princess who I believe is either Durin IV's sister or mother. Can't confirm that. And Elrond is there, a younger Elrond who is trying to make a name for himself. And his first task is to try to repair the relationship between the elves and the dwarves of Khazad-dûm. So he openly comes to Khazad-dûm and is put through a test by the dwarven prince. It looks like he's testing Elrond, and Elrond needs to embrace and respect the dwarven culture. Basically, it looks like who can smash up the biggest rock. A task that Elrond has no chance of winning. And even though I think Elrond will lose, he will gain the respect of the dwarven prince, which might come into play later when Durin IV takes over from his father and becomes king and joins the War of the Last Alliance. And I think the dwarves are something I'm really hyped for, because The Hobbit had potential, so hyped for the culture of the dwarves, which was shown, but once we got into the second movie, the dwarves were pushed aside in favour of Legolas and love triangles and all the other bullshit. But in this series, in the Second Age, Khazad-dûm is in its prime. And I think that's about it, guys. I think I've talked about pretty much everything, but if you want me to go into more details in other videos, just leave requests down below. But this is just my initial thoughts, reaction breakdown, nothing too in-depth. But if you want to talk about anything, maybe something I've missed, make sure you post that in the comments below. I think it looks great. I know not everyone's going to love it, but I think a longer trailer with more story and dialogue is coming, and that's needed. But so far, big fan of what I've seen. So yeah guys, thank you so much for watching, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you soon.